you had a quota, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of this quota, what it meant, it didn't mean the price was super high, although comparatively it was. um, it it meant that the market was stable.
Mm.
And what you then have to look at is like, why did we want a stable coffee market? Well, because if you think about it, this tied in with the Cold War and with the United States wanting stability in Central and South America and Africa. Because if we had stability in these regions, they were less likely to join the communist cause,
Oh, wow.
right? So there's so much history here.
You are
Now,
rocking my world with this information, lady. This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 2 of a 5-part series with Emma Haines from Algrano, and we're talking about how the coffee supply chain is changing in this moment. Now, for reference, we are recording this on the 19th of February. This will come out a few weeks after we record this. And the reason I'm giving you that reference is because in this episode, we're going to talk about what the turning point for this shift in the direction of the coffee supply chain was. So the market is sitting around about 420, give or take, at the moment. It has so far peaked at 440. And who knows what will happen from now until the time that this airs. But as we look at what the turning point was, I want to ask you, Emma, where do we start the conversation around this?
So I think that we have to think about the now and what has been going on in recent times. So if we said the last, say maybe 6 to 9 months, where all of a sudden, and some quicker than others, let's be honest, all of a sudden buyers have sat up and they've
started
said,
paying attention.
yeah, basically, holy shit, what is going on? What is happening? And I think we have had this surge of people who have started to panic. And I think panic is the right way to describe it, right? Like I don't want to sit here and be like, you have to do this and you must do that and the end of the world is nigh. But people have started to panic because everybody just thought we were having a temporary blip. And that didn't happen. That hasn't happened.
At this point, anyone who thinks this is temporary
hasn't been paying attention.
Yeah, like I'm hearing that a lot. And the other thing I'm hearing a lot of is people that are saying, Lee, I feel crazy because everybody around me is either in denial or they're telling me that I'm panicking too much because this is going to be over in a couple of weeks. And you keep telling me that it's not going to be over and this isn't temporary. In your mind, is this temporary?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'm not a trader. I'm not a market speculator, but I don't believe so. And I don't think it can be.
No, the change needed to happen.
Yeah, the change needed to happen. The change happened, in my opinion, probably way too late.
Yeah.
Should have happened, years and years and years ago. And I think that we shouldn't want to go back to previous times. And I appreciate that sounds really flippant and you'd have roasters saying, oh, it's all right for you if it's not affecting your bottom line, if it's not affecting your margin. But the problem is, maybe historically, it wasn't affecting roasters' bottom lines, but we built an entire specialty industry off the back of a completely unsustainable price model.
And commercial industry.
Well, and commercial industry, yeah. But you think like, right? And what they're not doing is looking at the history.
Say that again. It broke up. Say that again.
So people are looking at the now.
Yeah.
And what they're not looking at, I don't think, is the history.
Okay.
And also the future. And how do we know what's going to happen in the future? Well, the only way I know is by listening. I speak to producers and I listen to what they're telling me. I read. I try to understand. I can remember reading an article in probably 2015, 2016, saying at the rate of climate change, we'd be lucky if we had 10 years of Arabica left. And at the time, it was like, oh, that's ludicrous. They're just saying that to try and push the market out. But actually, here we are. We don't have, enough supply for the demands that we have. And I think people are not hearing these warning signs. And they're not really warning signs. They are, screaming alarm bells. And people are just choosing to ignore it. And we cannot afford to do it any longer. And one of the things that I really feel passionate about people knowing is this grey area between what we would refer to, right, as commercial and specialty. And I say it in inverted commas because to me, number one, all coffee is commercial.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hello. I don't know any roaster that runs a roastery with an idea of not earning a margin, right? Even if they do invest it back in in great ways, which some do, I don't deny, they're still in it for a commercial purpose. So all coffee is commercial, right? What we are failing to understand is that essentially, so you have this old sea market, right? And the sea market was formed in like the 1800s, and the 1882 was the start of the sea market. This is not a new thing. That for years operated in a very similar way until 1998, when it was bought by the New York Board of Traders, right? And then again, it was acquired by ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange, which is what we now have, in 2007. So alongside that, we've had kind of a transition in that market, but it's inherently been there since the 1800s. And alongside that, we used to have things known as quotas. And most roasters I speak to nowadays have never even heard of a coffee quota. Like, what is it? What are you talking about? And they have no idea how the quota system played in and how actually, like, we were having price back in the 90s at the end of the quota system, right? So you had this quota system that was essentially established by ICO, the International Coffee Association, under the ICA, which is the International Coffee Agreement. And the idea was that in a very brief sense, that there was a limit to the amount that producing countries could export. You had a quota, right? And because of this quota, what it meant, it didn't mean the price was super high, although comparatively it was. It meant that the market was stable. And what you then have to look at is like, why did we want a stable coffee market? Well, because if you think about it, this tied in with the Cold War and with the United States wanting stability in Central and South America and Africa. Because if we had stability in these regions, they were less likely to join the communist cause.
Oh, wow.
Right? So there's so much history here.
You are rocking my world with this information, lady. Thank you.
Well, again, it's like, it blows my mind because you can find this information, you have to look for it. But people don't talk about it.
No.
And I just don't know why. So basically, towards the end of the Cold War, So Cold War ended in what? In 1991, I think officially. So it was from 1947, just after World War II, to 1991. Now, coffee quotas were lobbied to stop at the end of the 80s. And it ties in of the Cold War. Now, it's because during that time, during the Cold War, as I say, the United States wanted stability in these producing countries because stability meant, we don't have to fight them as communists, essentially. We can prevent communism there. But then, as they became less focused on that, and they saw communism as kind of less of an issue, they didn't care about the price stability anymore. So the United States lobbied to end the quota system alongside Brazil. Because essentially at that point we had Brazil that had really focused on producing high yields, and there was inflation, and they didn't want these quotas. They were like, we have more to sell. We want to be able to sell more. So we then had the quotas stop officially in, I think, 1989. And what happened? We had a huge price crisis in the early 90s. Where we had this massive instability in the market. And at the same time as all this going on, so coffee quotas and this instability in the market, you see the rise of specialty coffee. So you essentially have in the, let's say, I think 60s, 70s. I mean, again, it depends where you read, what you look at, what you research as to when specialty coffee officially started. But in the 60s and 70s, we saw this kind of push forwards in specialty, right? You saw, was it Pete's Coffee in the States? You saw Starbucks. And these started this new industry. And they were focusing on quality. They were focusing on origin. They were focusing on all these things that people hadn't really heard of before. Because prior to that, coffee was just coffee. Like it was just a commodity. And so you have all of these things happening, all these mechanisms. And then at the same time, you have this specialty coffee movement jumping. Now, when did specialty coffee really become a thing? The 90s. And what was happening in the 90s was a freaking coffee price crisis off the back of the lack of quotas. So when we established specialty coffee, right, we had this kind of like neon lights of, oh, we're striving for quality. We're striving for, this kind of really unusual product. We're pushing for something really amazing and, delicious and delightful and something, much better than the more commercial coffees. And actually, it was built up at a time when the coffee market was in absolute, coffee producers were decimated price-wise. So if you were paying a premium for a higher quality coffee, you were, of course, demanding more. You weren't saying, I'm going to pay you a premium for the same quality coffee as that guy over there is buying because I just believe you're underpaid. I just believe it's not enough money for you to support and grow and do everything you need to do at Origin. We were saying, I'm going to pay you a premium, but I want X, Y, and Z. Okay, so here's your carrot. Go. And if you want to get this premium, this is what you have to achieve. So we saw this industry blossom. And again, like I said, it didn't start in the 90s, but it really took off, right, in the 90s, especially if you think like UK and Europe, I can speak for. And even like late 90s, early 2000s was the real kind of start of the specialty scene here. And it's all linked to all these other transitions in the market and what was going on globally. So what I mean by that is we didn't have specialty coffee kind of start at a time when the market was at a high. We had specialty coffee start when the market was decimated and we were already in big trouble. I'd say we as in the industry, the coffee producers were already in trouble. And so because of that, if you fast forward to now, you have this thing where I feel like roasters are realizing, oh man, I thought I was paying a premium.
But because it was built on such a low baseline.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. It's
So
so,
you've got this whole system, you see, that started, if you're starting
yeah.
from the bottom, the only way is up. Like you've got no other way of
No.
adjusting things because, even if you pay a bit more, it's an increase on what was available at that point. So
The
people have to know
benchmark,
it.
we started
Exactly.
from a benchmark
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
essentially kneecapping producers from the beginning, whether they were specialty or
Exactly.
commercial or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this adage that people have of markets are always right, I don't believe that. Coffee is the one thing that will show you that that markets are not always right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the
Mhm.
turning point was at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe so.
And so we kick the can down the road, kick the can down the road, kick the can
Mhm.
down the road. And now the
And now
road
it's
has ended.
finalist.
Right. And so we're
Now we're at a
becoming
crossroad.
aware, right? Oh, at the end, we're
Or a dead
becoming
end.
aware of the beginning,
Mhm.
and now we have to make a decision
Yeah.
about what our new beginning is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think, like, one of the things, I mean, it sounds like I sit here and I'm just berating, specialty coffee, and I'm not. I'm honest and I'm real and I see it for what it is. Like, I am a specialty coffee lover. I consume specialty coffee. I enjoy it. I love it. I think it's an amazing market. I think it's brilliant, but I'm also real. I understand that specialty coffee has not fixed anything.
No.
Even if we look back to the 90s, we still have the vast majority of smallholders who produce globally the most coffee. If you collated all the volume together, they are still living not just at the poverty level, they are living in extreme poverty.
Yeah.
Specialty coffee has not fixed the problem.
And I kind of want to give people an insight into what's happening. Again, it's the 19th of February, and I want to give people some insight into what's happening at Origin for some of these smallholder producers, because a lot of people are like, well, producers are making so much money now.
Yeah.
So smallholder producers right now are getting squeezed from the stories that I'm being told, by major corporations who refuse to pay them what the market price is. And because they don't have alternatives, they grow the coffee. These smallholder producers grow the coffee, they sell the cherry, and because a lot of mills are going out of business because they can't afford the leverage anymore to buy these cherries, these big companies are coming in and saying, we'll take it off your hands, but we're going to give you the same price as we did 12 months ago. Which means that at a time where they should be able to, I'm not going to say make bank, what I'm going to say is make a fair living for their hard work, they're getting fucked yet again.
Yeah.
Are you hearing similar stories?
Yeah. And I am rolling my eyes a lot when I read, social media is a prime example of this. Producers are earning a fortune. And I'm here with my head in my hands. Like, let me just stop and say, some will be earning a premium.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some producers are. People need to be clear on that. 100%.
Some producers will be earning more money right now. I am not disputing that. But for the vast majority, they will not be. And there's a few different reasons why. There is what you just mentioned. We also have to think about the fact that what has caused this massive price increase? Well, okay, we've had a lot of speculators bundle into the market and push the price up a bit in more recent times. But prior to that and underlying that, so take those speculators out, where will the market be? Well, we still have a shortage, right? And why do we have a shortage? Why do we have issues with supply? We have issues because of climate change. And so if I am a grower in Honduras and I work for a local cooperative and I have half the yield I had last year, and even if I'm being paid twice as much for my cherries, which is highly unlikely that I'll actually see half as much again or double the amount, let alone, or even half as much again, I am not earning extra.
No, people don't understand that.
Be where I was because I have less to sell. So first and foremost, climate change is a huge issue. It has been for a long time, and we are really, really seeing it reflected in the market now. And that is a problem. So it doesn't matter what price I'm selling it at, because I don't have enough. So we then have, some of the stories that I'm hearing from producers, if you take, for example, cooperatives, I'm super lucky with Algrano that I work with some phenomenal co-ops.
Explain what a co-op is for people who don't know what it is.
Sorry, yeah. So a cooperative can look different, again, in different countries in different ways. And they can, of course, be established and governed in different ways, depending on where they are. But essentially what we're talking about is a membership organization where producers will be part of a cooperative, and that cooperative can work together cooperatively to do the job of, perhaps processing, milling, and exporting the coffee. Now, though some cooperatives will sell to traders, some cooperatives will have direct market access, many cooperatives will do a bit of both. Because there just physically aren't enough people buying direct to support, as much direct as we would like to see, as I would like to see, as I think we need to see, in some instances. So I think that, with cooperatives, don't get me wrong, there are some not so good cooperatives. I'm not sitting here again with rose-tinted glasses. I'm pretending it's all good. But the co-ops that I have experience with, they are saying to us, like, Emma, we have contracts in place for buyers that we are super happy with. We are so happy these buyers support us. But we made a contract at this point for the harvest here. And in this time, there have been some big money buyers, people with liquidity, or maybe had liquidity at that point. Maybe they don't so much now, margin calls. But, people with cash
ding, ding, ding.
coming in and saying, we'll buy your coffee, we'll buy it now, and I'll give you cash now. And I've spoken to some cooperative managers who have said, we've had growers literally take their coffee out of the warehouse without us even knowing. We've gone to prep coffee for export, parchment or whatever, and the coffee's not even there. They've sold it. And they've been to, they haven't wanted to tell us they've sold it. And the problem with that is, it's a free market. Why is that an issue? If someone's willing to pay cash on the day. Well, the problem is it's not sustainable. And when I say it's not sustainable, I mean economically, it's not sustainable, because what they're doing is they're coming in, they're paying cash on the day, and then they're disappearing again. And they're leaving cooperatives that are embedded in the local community, that have invested in the local community, that have paid premiums to their members and to producers that work with them when times have been really low, when times have been really tough. They have sought to give stability locally, and they are invested, and they are part, and they are owned by that community. And then they are essentially shafted by somebody coming in, being greedy and saying, I'll give you cash, let me take your coffee.
It's predatory. It's the same sort of practice as the race to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm all right, Jack, I can cover my contract. Screw everybody else. Yeah. And it's a really, really tough space. I mean, Peru, we saw this happen.
Oh, Jesus. I heard some numbers out of Peru yesterday that scare me.
Yeah. But people didn't listen. At the beginning of harvest, we were saying, before harvest even began,
help people understand the situation in Peru.
Peruvian producers say, we knew really early on. I have an amazing colleague called Louisa, and she does a lot of research with producers. And I remember her writing a blog about the Peruvian harvest. And she said quite clearly in this blog, like months prior to when people were looking at actually exporting from Peru, she was like, producers are telling us they're going to run out of coffee.
Mm.
And honestly, I had people saying, yeah, people always say that because they want us to contract. People always do it because they want us to buy. And I'm like, no, we're just telling you what we are just passing on the information, maybe translating it, but we're just passing on the information. You're getting quotes in these blogs directly from the producers.
Mm.
They have no need to lie to you. Why would they lie? It doesn't help them out. They don't want to scare people away from buying from Peru. So this major shortage, wasn't able to fulfill a lot of the contracts globally. So there were lots of defaults. I don't know what the total count up number is now. I've had a few different numbers, but I don't know what it is as of now. Have you got the
I do.
information? Oh, go for it. Go for it. You'll be
So it was predicted to be 5.6 and it's 3.6, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, massive numbers.
I mean, a discrepancy of that's a discrepancy of 2 million bags for people that are not understanding that. That means that 2 million bags not being able to be fulfilled of contracts that were written. This is the kind of thing that breaks people that were counting on that coffee, that had contracted that coffee and were expecting it to show up. And it's also as bad for Peru, who can't fulfill contracts that they had committed to.
Yeah, well, this is the other thing, right, that people don't realize. So if you commit to a contract as a producer or as an exporter and you can't fulfill, you have a liability.
So what is that liability?
So essentially, if you have signed a contract to supply something, you have a liability to deliver. If you default on the contract, there's issues. And you have the risk of what we refer to as arbitration, which is essentially legal proceedings.
Does it happen? So this is a question that a lot of people ask is, is it enforceable?
Yeah, legally it is, yeah.
Absolutely. Does it get enforced?
I, thankfully, have never been part of arbitration against a producer.
Yeah, okay.
In my experience in the supply chain, historically, defaults come from roasters, not from producers.
Wow.
I know, right? Crazy. So, in my experience in Algrano, if we have a default, it would likely be on the roaster side, not the producer side. And people can't.
Doesn't that say something?
They're like, but it's untrustworthy buying from Origin. You're like, okay. They should be more concerned about whose contract's in it, thanks. But it happens, right? Like, life happens, businesses go under, people have issues. We get it. Like, it's not good. Nobody wishes for this. But yeah, with your liability on a contract, essentially you can be made to find that coffee elsewhere. If you can't find that coffee elsewhere as a say, for example, a cooperative, you will be liable for the price difference. Wow. If your client finds that elsewhere. So that would be like a reasonable response, considered a reasonable response. Now, if you think if the market had gone from 220 to 420 in that time, that has cost you money to fulfill somebody else's contract. You've not earned a penny. You've lost money. It will cause cooperatives. Is causing cooperatives to go under. This is really shady. This is really bad. This has to be known about. This has to be talked about. So thankfully, we didn't have like a huge number of defaults within Algrano. I would like to say that's primarily because we are super open and we had conversations. This has been a crazy time for everybody, even people buying direct, right? Like, you're not in a bubble protected from it. If you're buying direct, you are just a step ahead. You are able to help make decisions and you are part of this process, right? Like, that's the difference. So like we've had conversations like where we have stepped in and said, okay, like, spoken to the cooperatives, what can we do to help support? How can we help you?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that has been, well, actually higher, because now the local market is so high that only way I can get that coffee is to pay more. But yeah, industry wide, there's been a lot of defaults, and I had never ever had more people come to me inquiring for shipments of Peru than I did, towards the end of last year.
Well, and that's
November,
the thing.
December, it was constant.
Well, when there's a discrepancy that is that big, finding solutions to fulfill that 2 million bags. I mean, it's a small producing country as it is. It's not a huge quantity. When there's a discrepancy of 2 million bags, it's not, I mean, maybe one contract here or there, or a few contracts here and there, you're going to be able to find a different supply. But we're talking about a lot of coffee that's not going to get fulfilled.
No.
And it's not
as
though what's happening is a freak situation, right?
No, it's going to happen time and time again.
Yeah, go on.
What people did was they realized and they skipped to Central America.
Yeah.
So they went, Peru's off the cards. We're now going to fulfill that with Centrals, which, if you're buying Peru, given that the harvest time is quite normal, to maybe, if you're, let's say, I'm talking big volume buyers, right? People buying container loads, or even, smaller roasters buying by the pallet. But it's very normal if you have like a seasonal blend to switch Peru for a Central American option, right? So maybe Nicaragua, maybe Honduras. They're the ones we see. Maybe Guatemala. They're the ones we kind of see. And people did that, but they were trying to do that super early, super early. So they were trying to do it before harvest in Central America was completed and the coffee was ready. Now, what happened at the same time, so as we were starting to see these defaults come through and people being like, oh man, actually this Peru is not going to get shipped. We need to find an alternative plan. They were going over to Central and saying, okay, well, we'll buy from you, or we'll move our, volume from Peru to you. And at the same time, we had really bad storms in Central America. And I can remember at the end of November being on a call with the family of Mag Coffee, essentially, who are in El Salvador. And they're amazing producers we work with, do some really incredible stuff. And I remember hearing from them, like, the storms are so bad, and we haven't had it that bad here compared to some other places. But the storms have been so bad that the fields are flooded. We don't know what our yield is. We don't know how much we've lost. So we knew Central America was going to have less coffee. So Central America has less coffee available. So now, like, we, as in certainly from an Algrano perspective, for example, we are saying, guys, if you want Centrals, you need to get booked now.
Yeah.
We are, for the first time, we are saying, we recommend you're even booking pre-sample stage. Like, if you wait for offer samples, that coffee will be sold out. Because you've had this swathe of like big buyers skip from Peru to Central. And they'll just buy it all up. They'll do what they did in Peru. Well, and they'll just buy it all up.
And then people are like, well, we'll just buy Brazil's.
Yeah, exactly. And then they hear that their Brazil Santos is landing at $10 a kilo, and they're like, sorry, what?
Well, and even that, people like, there's plenty of flowers going on in Brazil, and I'm sure people in this podcast are sick of hearing me talk about this. But the flowers fell off the trees, guys. A lot of flowers fell off the trees, which is what's driving the price of Brazil Santos's up to such massive amounts. It's like the trees had to make a decision. Reproduce and make cherries, or grow back the leaves that we lost during the droughts and the frosts. So go ahead.
I don't know what we're going to see from Brazil harvest reports. Like, it's early, right? We're not 100% sure. I've heard loads of mixed reviews, and obviously it will have an impact in the market. But I think we just have to look at the inherent climate change and realize that they get easier. Things are not going to suddenly become, if people are sitting there waiting for the market to get back to 180, I wish you luck because you're going to need it.
Well,
And we shouldn't go back to there, right?
no.
We shouldn't do that. That's not what the industry needs. We need to think about how we're buying coffee.
We need to be focused on how do we create stability and how do we redistribute the risk across the supply chain so that we can create more stability. And I think that's going to be a great place for us to move into the next episode, which is going to be about how is the market currently experiencing the rapid shift in coffee? Because I believe that right now people are becoming aware of their mortality as a business and as professionals in the industry. And that is what's going to lead to a reimagining of mindset, in my opinion. So join us for the next episode, folks. We have failed so bad at keeping these episodes to 20 minutes, another 35-minute episode. But we sort of apologize, but don't really. Anyway, join us for the next episode, folks. I promise you we're going to try and do better. See you then. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon, and stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.